As a Swiss immigrant, Frank was fascinated by American culture. He wanted to explore and understand the complexities of the United States, a country that was in many ways a symbol of modernity and freedom, but also fraught with contradictions and social issues. Although he was already photographing parts of Europe, his real journey began when he moved to New York City in 1947. Post-World War II America, particularly New York City, was becoming a hub for avant-garde artists and intellectuals. The art scene in the United States was vibrant and innovative, offering more opportunities for artistic growth and collaboration than Switzerland. The United States also offered Frank more opportunities for commercial photography assignments. He initially worked for fashion magazines such as Harper's Bazaar, which provided him with financial stability and professional experience. Frank was inspired by American photographers and artists who were pushing the boundaries of their mediums. He was particularly influenced by Walker Evans, whose work he admired for its unflinching depiction of American life. Moving to America allowed him to immerse himself in a different culture and expand his horizons. Frank aimed to challenge and redefine the conventions of documentary photography. He wanted to move away from the polished, patriotic images commonly associated with America, and instead present a raw, honest portrayal of everyday life. His style was considered radical and difficult to understand by many of his contemporaries. Frank's nonconformist approach often left him feeling isolated within the art community. While his work was eventually celebrated, the initial lack of acceptance from mainstream critics and institutions was a significant hurdle. Despite these struggles, his ability to turn personal and professional hardships into a profound and lasting artistic statement is a testament to his resilience and talent. Robert Frank's perseverance and dedication to his vision resulted in The Americans becoming one of the most influential photography books of the 20th century. Robert Frank's documentation of America, in his seminal work, The Americans, was a departure from traditional documentary photography of the time. Rather than presenting an idealized or patriotic view of the United States, Frank's photographs offered a raw and unfiltered portrayal of American society. He captured the diversity, contradictions, and complexities of the nation, often focusing on themes such as race, class, consumerism, and alienation. Through his lens, Frank revealed the less glamorous aspects of American life, including poverty, segregation, and the loneliness of urban existence. His photographs were often candid and spontaneous expressions that conveyed a sense of authenticity and emotional depth. What set Frank's work apart was his subjective interpretation of reality. He didn't strive for objective documentation, but instead infused his images with his own perspective and feelings, challenging viewers to confront uncomfortable truths about their society. When The Americans was first published, it received harsh criticism from many American critics. The book's stark, unflattering portrayal of American life contrasted sharply with the more optimistic and patriotic imagery that was prevalent at the time. Critics described his work as anti-American and overly pessimistic. Popular Photography asked a number of writers to critique the book, and almost all of them were very negative. Curator at the National Gallery of Art, Sarah Greenough, says, "It was described as a sad poem by a very sick person." The Museum of Modern Art wouldn't even sell the book, Frank says. But the younger people caught on. He set off in June 1955. His first stops were in Pennsylvania and Ohio, then Michigan, where he was allowed to photograph inside Ford's River Rouge plant in Dearborn. It was so hot, and the noise, and the machines. And then the workers would see me, and for some reason, they all started to scream. It was just a release, Frank laughs. His photograph of the factory is a grainy blur. 2 lines of men at work, blacks and whites side by side and facing each other across the assembly line that runs up the middle of the picture. There were some hairy moments. In Arkansas, Frank was stopped by state police for no other reason than that he was a foreign-looking person driving an older car, Greenove says. When the police stopped him, he didn't speak with a good Southern accent. He was jailed and interrogated for several hours. He described it as one of the most terrifying experiences of his trip, she says. Frank was a foreigner with a bunch of cameras at the height of the Cold War. Police thought he was a spy. In a way, he was. During his trip, Frank shot 767 rolls of film yielding about 27,000 images. He edited that down to about 1,000 work prints, spread them across the floor of his studio and tacked them to the walls for a final edit. Out of a year and a half of work, Frank chose just 83 images. Frank faced significant challenges in getting The Americans published in the United States. The book was initially published in France in 1958, and it took a year longer to find an American publisher. In the end, The Americans remains a powerful and enduring portrayal of the nation that continues to resonate with audiences.
Gordon Parks got his first camera through a serendipitous opportunity. In his autobiography, A Choice of Weapons, Parks recounts how he found a Voigtlander camera left behind in a pawn shop window in Seattle, Washington. The camera was being sold for $7.50, but Parks didn't have the full amount. He managed to negotiate the price down to $6 and bought it on a layaway plan, paying $1 each week from his janitorial wages. This camera became Parks's first tool for photography and marked the beginning of his journey into the world of visual storytelling. Despite his lack of formal training, Parks's talent and dedication to his craft eventually propelled him to become one of the most influential photographers of the 20th century. Gordon Parks was the first African-American staff photographer for Life magazine. His first assignment as a Life magazine photographer was a photo essay on a young Harlem gang leader named Leonard Red Jackson. This assignment, titled Harlem Gang Leader, was published in Life magazine in 1948. Parks's compelling photographs and insightful narrative provided a candid glimpse into the life of Red Jackson and the challenges faced by African American youth in Harlem during that time. This photo essay marked the beginning of Parks's distinguished career as a staff photographer for Life magazine and solidified his reputation as a masterful visual storyteller. His style as a photographer was characterized by a unique blend of empathy, storytelling, and social commentary. He had a remarkable ability to capture the human experience with both sensitivity and depth, often focusing on the lives of marginalized communities, particularly African Americans. One of the hallmarks of Parks's style was his use of light and shadow to create dramatic and evocative images. Whether photographing intimate portraits or scenes of everyday life, he employed lighting techniques to convey mood and emotion, adding depth and resonance to his work. Parks was also known for his skillful composition and attention to detail. He had a keen eye for capturing moments and framing his subjects in a way that drew viewers into the narrative of the photograph. His compositions often combined elements of realism with artistic flair, resulting in images that were both visually compelling and thought-provoking. In terms of subject matter, Parks's work spanned a wide range of themes, including poverty, segregation, civil rights, and the human condition. He had a knack for finding beauty and dignity in even the most challenging circumstances, and his photographs often served as powerful vehicles for social commentary and change. Parks photographed the American South during the Civil Rights era, capturing the realities of racial segregation, poverty, and discrimination. His images provided a powerful visual narrative of the struggles faced by African Americans in the southern United States during this tumultuous period. One of Parks's notable projects in the South was his photo essay on the Jim Crow South, which was published in Life magazine in 1956. In this series, Parks documented the everyday lives of African Americans living under segregation, showcasing the indignities they endured and the resilience they displayed in the face of adversity. Parks's photographs from the South often depicted scenes of racial segregation in public spaces such as schools, buses, and restaurants, as well as the efforts of African American communities to resist and overcome systemic oppression. His images served as a powerful indictment of the injustices of segregation while also celebrating the dignity and strength of those who fought against it. Overall, Gordon Parks's influence can be seen not only in the world of photography and filmmaking, but also in the broader realms of social justice and activism. His legacy continues to inspire artists, activists, and storytellers around the world, reminding us of the power of art to effect positive change in society.
Growing up during the Great Depression, Levitt was acutely aware of the economic and social challenges faced by many people in her city. This awareness is reflected in her empathetic portrayal of her subjects, particularly the marginalized and working-class communities. Levitt's career spanned over several decades, beginning in the late 1930s and continuing through the early 2000s. Her photographs capture spontaneous, unposed moments of everyday life. She had a talent for blending into her surroundings, allowing her subjects to act naturally without being self-conscious. Levitt had a particular fascination with children and their uninhibited play in the streets. Their creativity, spontaneity, and natural expressiveness were a major source of inspiration for her photography. She was drawn to the imaginative worlds that children created, seeing in them a reflection of the human spirit. "She doesn't just charge in like many male street photographers tend to," says Sian Davey, a British documentary photographer. "Instead, in her pictures, you sense a particular quality of contact between her and her subjects. There is tenderness and an absence of ego that tells you what kind of person she was. What is evident from close attention to her contact sheets is that people are often presenting themselves in regard to the photographer opposite them," he says. "They are knowing participants in her photographs, looking at her, smiling at her, flirting or striking a pose for her camera. Though often she crops her photographs to take out these overt acknowledgments of her presence. On one level, her photography is essentially a performative exchange, and that lends it a very contemporary resonance." Meeting Henri Cartier-Bresson was a pivotal moment in Levitt's career. Cartier-Bresson's approach to capturing candid, decisive moments in everyday life resonated with Levitt and influenced her own style of street photography. His work encouraged her to pursue the spontaneous and unposed aspects of urban life. Levitt's friendship and collaboration with Walker Evans, known for his documentary photography, also played a significant role. Evans' emphasis on capturing the reality of American life and his documentary approach helped shape Levitt's own vision and technique. In the 1950s, Levitt started experimenting with color photography, which added a new dimension to her work. This period saw her transition to color film, capturing the vibrancy of urban life. Levitt continued her work in color photography throughout the 1960s, producing some of her most iconic images. Her color photographs from this period are particularly celebrated for their vividness and compositional brilliance. Then the following decade, despite a significant setback in the early 1970s when many of her color slides were stolen, Levitt persisted in her work. She continued to photograph and began receiving some acknowledgement for her contributions to the art world. However, as a female photographer in a predominantly male-dominated field, Levitt faced gender biases that limited opportunities and recognition. Despite her significant contributions to photography, she often did not receive the same level of acclaim or support as her male counterparts. Although Levitt was respected among her peers, she did not achieve widespread fame during much of her career. It wasn't until later in life that her work received broader appreciation. This delayed acknowledgement meant she often worked without the validation and financial benefits that come with greater fame. Despite facing economic hardships, gender biases, and personal setbacks, Helen Levitt's dedication to her craft never wavered. Her work, now widely recognized and celebrated, continues to inspire and influence photographers and artists around the world. Levitt's legacy is that of an artist who, with a quiet yet powerful voice, captured the fleeting beauty and profound humanity of ordinary moments, leaving an indelible mark on the world of photography.